Now time for oral questions, and I recognize the Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Speaker. Before I get started, I just, on behalf of New Democrats, want to extend our sincere condolences to the family and friends of Teresa Lecce and to the member for their loss. I also want to mention that the Premier and I were both in the Muskokas on the weekend looking at some of the horrifying damage and heartbreaking damage that the floods had created. Certainly want to mention Major Scott Graham of the 7th Toronto Regiment RCA and Lieutenant Colonel Graham Walsh, commanding officer of the Toronto Scottish Regiment, and all their folks and others who are doing their very, very best to help people out at a horrifying and heartbreaking time. My question this morning is for the Premier, Speaker. Last week in the Legislature, the Premier responded to concerns from Mayor John Tory about cuts to public health by saying the Mayor needed to, quote, wake up, smell the coffee and start driving efficiencies. Over the weekend, we learned that the mayors and regional chairs of Ontario have joined municipal leaders representing millions of Ontarians from Prescott to northwestern Ontario to call for a reversal of these cuts. Does the Premier think all of these leaders also need to wake up and smell the coffee?
Questions to the Premier.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of politicians in the province that need to wake up and smell the coffee and stop the spending and start being responsible with taxpayers' money. It's easy for the Leader of the Opposition just to continue to spend because there's no fiscal responsibility. Well, I'll tell you, first of all, the figures that the city are throwing out there is completely, Mr. Speaker, inaccurate, 100% inaccurate. The decision to eliminate any childcare space is the responsibility of the City of Toronto. It's not the responsibility of the province. Our changes, what we're asking for, Mr. Speaker, is for the city to find 5% savings in administration alone. The administration, Mr. Speaker, do you imagine $30 million on just administration? That is absolutely ridiculous. $30 million. The Auditor General from the City of Toronto said there's waste when it came to childcare and that they can find efficiencies on the administration cost. Mr. Speaker, our total budget is $433 million we're giving the City of Toronto. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Well, Speaker, in my books, what's ridiculous is asking municipalities to cut back after they already passed their budgets over a month ago. You know, and it's not just municipal leaders that are raising concerns, Speaker. Doctors, nurses, frontline healthcare workers are all making it clear that cuts to public health units will mean more hallway medicine. To put it in the words of 2 emergency room doctors just last week, and I quote, Premier Doug Ford's public health cuts will mean more people are sick, more strain on the limping ER system, and more hallway medicine for you and your loved ones. Is the Premier ready to admit that these cuts will leave people waiting longer in the emergency room, or does he think the frontline medical professionals sounding alarm bells should just wake up and smell the coffee?
Premier.
Minister of Health.
Refer to the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Well, I think it should be noted, first of all, that we are putting $1.3 billion more into our healthcare system. That's going to make a big difference in ending hallway healthcare. But to suggest that public health units can't find any efficiencies as we're making these changes over a few years, with respect to the City of Toronto, that makes absolutely no sense. As the Premier has said, in fact, in the City of Toronto, they have had surpluses in their public health accounts over 10 years, amounting to $52 million. So to say now they can't find a cent in savings, no one believes that. We are going to make those changes to make sure that those programs, protecting what matters most, is going to continue. Child nutrition programs, they're going to continue to be provided for. The province's share under the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services. Vaccination programs are going to continue. Assisting children with special needs, all of those programs are going to continue because the $114 million that the City of Toronto is going to get from the province of Ontario is more than enough to provide those programs.
final supplementary.
Well, Speaker, to suggest that we'll eliminate hallway medicine while not even increasing our healthcare budgets to cover off inflation, nobody believes that, Speaker. The problem for the Premier is that in order for the Ford government to be right, doctors, the Ontario Medical Association, Ontario Nurses Association, frontline medical workers, chief medical officers of health, and mayors from across Ontario, including the Mayor of Toronto, who used to lead the Premier's party, all have to be wrong. No one believes the Premier when he says his cuts won't impact public health. No one. So will the Premier wake up and smell the coffee and put an end to these health care cuts today?
Questions been referred to the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care.
Well, once again, it needs to be pointed out that there is an additional $1.3 billion going into health care. It is greater than the rate of inflation. It is going to provide a great assistance across the board to doctors, nurses, hospitals, and so on. But I think some of the information that has been pointed out on the city side is inaccurate. The changes are far smaller than what has been suggested by one Toronto councillor, and I think it's really important for the people of Ontario to understand this is an increase overall in the healthcare budget. The changes that we are bringing in with respect to public health are manageable by the public health units and are being brought in over 3 years. It needs to be done over that period of time to make sure that they can amend, find their priorities, and make sure that they put their money into things that are actual public health priorities. That's what we want to do. That's what we're expected to do on this side of the House, and we're simply asking public health units to do the same.
Exactly. Next question, the Leader of the Opposition.
My next question's also for the Premier, Speaker, but when you don't fund to cover off inflation, that means serious cuts. That's what this province is putting, this government's putting this province through, and people are going to pay the price in their reduced access to health services. That's what's happening. But in another stealth cut from the Ford government budget, families are now learning that childcare costs are about to skyrocket. City of Toronto reports that Ford government cuts are putting childcare spaces and subsidies at risk, and for some families, losing these subsidies could mean childcare costs shooting from $3,600 a year up to $23,000 a year. Does the Premier think it's fair to hit families with a $19,400 hike in the cost of childcare?
The questions to the Premier.
Well, through you, Mr. Speaker, we have a great child care program, much better than the previous administration. And I just what I didn't hear, and by the way, I had a good chat, met with the mayor on Thursday, had a good chat with him. He understands there has to be efficiencies to be found, but what I'm not hearing from the City of Toronto, as they're so desperate for childcare spaces, last year 16% of Toronto's childcare spaces were left sitting empty. Wow. They were empty. 16% were being just empty. Well, we're in desperate need for childcare. Through the care tax credit, families will receive $6,000. That's $6,000 per child. Per child under 7, they'll receive $3,750 from a child over 7 to 16 years of age, and then $8,250 for a child with a severe disability. And they have their choice. Before they didn't have a choice. Now they have a choice. Who's going to take care of their children?
Thank you. Supplementary question.
This Premier is so out of touch that he doesn't realize that people can't afford childcare at $24,000 a year. $6,000 is not going to make childcare affordable, and those spaces will still stay empty, Speaker. But here's what Toronto's Deputy Mayor Michael Thompson said, who's been an ally to the Premier in the past, and he spoke out on Friday on the need for the government to reconsider these cuts. He was joined at his press conference by one working mother who relies on childcare supports provided by the City of Toronto. And she said this: "If they cut the subsidy, what should I do? Should I quit my job?" she asked. Does the Premier have an answer for her?
Premier.
Minister of Education.
Referred to the Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise in the House today and continue on this discussion, because we have to get all the facts out on the table. You know, we know for a fact that the city-run daycare centres are 30% higher in cost than any other centres across this province. And you know, even the city's own Auditor General has raised warning flags about the manner in which the City of Toronto has managed and administered their daycare centres. For instance, they have city administrators go around and monitor things like how much greenery is on trees. They also have city administrators go around to make sure the seasonal decorations are in place in daycares. Honestly, Speaker, is that the best use of taxpayer dollars?
Response.
I think the City of Toronto can find 5% in administration efficiencies because we need to get it right for the families, and we look forward to the City of Toronto working with us to make sure this happens.
Hear, hear. Final supplementary.
Well, Speaker, I don't know, and I have not met a single parent in this province who wants their kids playing on concrete instead of grass.
That's right.
But once again, the Premier is insisting that there is nothing to see here, while families see services that they rely on vanish before their eyes. The Premier's reckless cuts could leave a family earning $45,000 a year, with a $23,000 a year childcare bill. This is wrong, Speaker, absolutely wrong. The Deputy Mayor of Toronto has called on the Premier to discuss these plans with municipal leaders before imposing them, with no idea of the consequences yet again. Will the Premier do that?
Minister of Education.
Speaker, all I can say is the members opposite and the leader would be well advised to stop fear-mongering, because people are stepping up. In fact, I want to share this one quote. The reaction by some municipal officials have been totally over the top, says Andrea Hannon, Executive Director of the Association of Daycare Operators of Ontario. It's like they want families to start panicking. The fact of the matter is there has been a lot of waste in the system for a very, very long time. The Minister of Education is quite right when she says that changes don't need to result in service cuts to Ontario families. So, Speaker, again, we want to work with the city because we feel there is a lot of room to find some efficiencies, 5% efficiencies, because guess what? We want the dollars to be going where they're needed most. That's to families that have children that need to be in daycare, and it's shameful that they've left. Last year, 16% vacancies on the table. Wow. That is disgusting. The City of Toronto needs to pull up their socks.
Hear, hear.
Next question. Once again, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Speaker. My next question is to the Premier, but I would say that this government needs to get a reality check because people cannot afford childcare. That's why spaces are left empty.
That's right.
Anyways, this weekend, the Premier and I both had the opportunity to see firsthand the heartbreaking devastation caused by flooding in communities across Ontario. The Premier has admitted that climate change is real. He admits that floods aren't happening once in a century, that they're happening once a year. If the Premier truly believes that, Speaker, and it's more vital than ever to protect communities against flooding, then why is the government slashed funding for conservation authorities for flood management programs by half?
Questions to the Premier.
Minister of Environment.
Referred to the Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks.
So, Mr. Speaker, and through the member, and thank you for the question, and I commend her as well as the Premier, as well as many others, for visiting the sites of flooding. I was in Ottawa myself this weekend, visiting with families that are affected. But, Mr. Speaker, our Made in Ontario Environment Plan talks specifically about these issues. We put the focus, yes, on mitigation, yes, on dealing with greenhouse gases, but we also put the focus on making sure that our communities are prepared. In the case of Muskoka, that's why we introduced the Muskoka Watershed Management Initiative, an initiative that will bring $5 million government dollars and $5 million other dollars from the federal government and elsewhere to support understanding the watersheds and making sure that we protect families. That's why that we talk in our Made in Ontario Environment Plan about the building code and modernizing the building code to make sure that we're protecting the buildings and the critical infrastructure and the homes against this. So, Mr. Speaker, this is our focus. It's a focus when the emergency is happening. That's why the Premier was there, and it's a focus going forward.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Well, Speaker, the Ford government's not just cutting flood management programs. They scrapped the 50 million tree project that, among other things, mitigated flood risk while fighting climate change. They scrapped most of the province climate programs. They fired the environmental commissioner, and they're leaving cash-strapped municipalities scrambling to deal with the mess. How can the Premier look in the eyes of those families devastated by flooding and turn around and cut programs designed to protect those very people?
Members, please take their seats. Questions been referred to the Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks.
To the Minister of Natural Resources.
Referred to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Very much, Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition has covered an awful lot of ground there. I'm not sure what she specifically wants to talk about, but we can talk about the 50 million tree program, which, quite frankly, Speaker, I can tell you that across the province of Ontario, the forest industry plants 68 million trees on average every year. And we've been working with Forests Ontario to ensure that the tree planting that is designed and scheduled for this year will go on as planned. But, Speaker, we were left from the previous government a $15 billion deficit, and we were elected on the mandate to clean up the Liberals' mess that they left us. So we have to make choices. We have ensured that our forestry industry, which is a bedrock industry in this province, will be properly supported by ensuring that the Forest Access Road program will be funded for this year, and the forest industry said that was a #1 priority. But I say to the member opposite, if you just recall that we were left a mess, and we're going to clean up that mess.
Next question, member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for our excellent, caring and compassionate Premier. Over the past week, we've seen the impact of flooding in communities across Ontario, and it's continuing in many areas. I want to thank all the volunteers, first responders, and the Canadian Armed Forces for their hard work protecting people and property. Water levels appear to have crested in many areas and are starting to go down, but there's still plenty of work that lies ahead. The Premier has visited many of our communities that have experienced flooding, and on Friday he was in Muskoka to see firsthand the impacts floods have had there. Can the Premier inform the House on what steps we're taking to prepare for the future?
Excellent. Good question. Questions to the Premier.
Well, through you, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member from Peterborough-Kawartha for the great question. What a great representative he is. I've been up in Peterborough. He's an all-star up in Peterborough, I'll tell you. Mr. Speaker, I had an opportunity to go back up into the Bracebridge area and visit Graydon Smith, the mayor of Bracebridge. Also, the mayor of Muskoka Lakes was there as well. Had a great conversation, and we've agreed we're putting a task force together to find out and support the local people, first of all, but how this starts. And it starts up by Huntsville. The water flows down. There's 3 catch basins, be it Lake Muskoka, Rosso, and Lake Joe, and there's just not enough area in those lakes to hold on to the water that's flowing. So we're going to come up with a plan that we can make sure we can control the water system coming down north of Huntsville, but it's going to be a great plan because we're getting the community involved, we're getting experts involved from Minister of Environment, Minister of Natural Resources, local people, especially our great MPP, Norm Miller. He knows that.
Thank you. Thank you. Supplementary question.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Premier for that answer. I'd also like to remind everyone to remain cautious and avoid fast-flowing creeks and river. The last thing we want to see right now is someone floating their fanny down the Ganney. I know the people back home in the riding of Peterborough-Kawartha appreciate a Premier they know they can count on to take action in a time of need. It's been great to see the Premier taking this issue seriously and committing to use all the tools at our government's disposal to help Ontarians. Can the Premier update the House on his meetings with the mayors of Bracebridge and the Township of Muskoka Lakes, and what our government will be doing to help deal with flooding in the future?
The end of the Premier.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, again, I want to thank the member for his question. When I went up there, one of the other areas that I visited was actually the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. Ontario Chamber of Commerce, taking care of commerce across Ontario, it was just over the top. I had a standing ovation when I walked in after our speech, another standing ovation. People were so excited. Small business owners, medium business owners, large business owners, they finally see this province turning the corner. Yep. I did have an opportunity after that meeting, actually, sit down with the Mayor of Muskoka Lakes and meet the Mayor of Bracebridge as well with our local MPP. We sat down and we've agreed to come up with a solution. The first solution was the Minister of Environment allocated $5 million. That's $5 million to protect the watershed, and that's just the beginning, Mr. Speaker. We put our money where our mouth is. We're up in Muskoka supporting the people, and there's so many other areas that we haven't even touched on how we're supporting the people that have been flooded out, be it in Ottawa or in the Muskokas.
Thank you. Next question, the member for Essex.
Good morning, Speaker. Thank you. My question is to the Premier. Speaker, the Ontario Chamber of Commerce has joined the chorus of Ontarians calling on the Ford government to back away from their scheme to levy a $10,000 a day fine on every gas station that refuses to display their partisan campaign stickers. Speaker, to quote the current president of the Chamber, former PC candidate Rocco Rossi, the sticker scheme is, quote, unnecessary red tape, an increased cost to business, and a violation of business owners' rights and freedoms. Speaker, is this Premier finally ready to throw in the towel on this poorly thought-out scheme?
Questions to the Premier.
Minister of Environment, please. I'm sorry.
Energy.
Minister of Energy, I apologize.
Refer to the Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are committed to making sure that every person in Ontario starts to understand how much this job-killing regressive carbon tax costs. It's not just at the pumps. Stickers on ordinary products, services and programs across this province are soon, if not already, going to reflect, Mr. Speaker, how much this is costing. You know, in the riding of Keewatin, there's a sawmill up there. They did the tabulations from the beginning of April till the end of 2019. The carbon tax alone is going to cost $1.2 million. That's just the carbon tax. Now, they cut boardfoot, Mr. Speaker, garden sheds, homes, you name it, Mr. Speaker. That cost is going to be translated on the consumer. It's not going to be reflected in the $307 that the federal government is spending millions of dollars to tell Canadians they'd get back as a rebate. Mr. Speaker, we will use every tool at our disposal to stand up and make sure Ontario knows how much this is costing us.
Supplementary.
Thank you very much, Speaker. The minister's answer suggests he's not only happy to stick it to the Liberals, but he's happy to stick it to small business owners and taxpayers in the province of Ontario, Speaker. Speaker, you know what? It takes a lot of work.
Government House Leader, come to order. Government House Leader, come to order. Member for Essex.
Thank you very much, Speaker. You know, it takes a lot of work to come up with an idea so bad that it unites everybody from Greenpeace to the Chamber of Commerce against it. It's unbelievable. But, Speaker, we leave it to this Premier to succeed in that endeavour. The Premier can't find funding for schools and health care. In the midst of record funding, cuts to funding, he's cut funding for flood management, but he's ready to spend millions of dollars fining business owners $10,000 a day for failing to display his campaign advertising. How many people have to tell this Premier to abandon this scheme before he admits it's wrong?
One more.
Members, take your seats. Minister of Energy, Northern Development and Mines.
The member opposite is looking for political parties for us to stick it to. We'll stick it to the NDP, Mr. Speaker, because it isn't just about boardfoot that's being cut near Falls. It's about those family vehicles that are produced in Essex, Mr. Speaker. We know that those families who are buying those vehicles are coming to the gas pumps and seeing how much more they're paying, Mr. Speaker. When they go to the grocery store, how much more fruit and vegetables are
Opposition, come to order.
Speaker. How much more it's costing at the hardware store for these products to be produced, Mr. Speaker. We will not lose an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that the people of Ontario understand how much this job-killing regressive carbon tax is costing them, Mr. Speaker, period. Thank you very much.
next question, the member for Burlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Speaker, on this side of the House, we know the Liberals, heavily supported by the NDP, left Ontario in a housing crisis. Our most vulnerable were left with broken, unlivable community housing stock that was only getting worse. Individuals were penalized for trying to go to school and become self-sufficient. But in April, our government announced a path forward for community housing in Ontario. The minister provided tangible solutions that protected the most vulnerable from criminal activity, clear the waitlist for affordable housing, and simplify the overly complex rent-geared-to-income rules. Mr. Speaker, can the minister please explain to this House what real change looks like for community housing in Ontario?
Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Thanks, Speaker, and I want to thank the member for Burlington, who has continued to work hard for her constituents on this file. Speaker, the member's right. Instead of providing solutions, the previous Liberal government, supported by the NDP, really put us on a hook not only for a $15 billion deficit, but also an inefficient housing system that really didn't meet people's needs. About a month ago, Speaker, I was pleased to announce our government's community housing renewal strategy. We're investing over $1 billion in 2019-2020 alone to both sustain, repair and grow Ontario's community housing system. We're going to be doing a number of things, as the member mentioned. We're going to make it easier to both predict and calculate rent for tenants and for landlords. We're going to ensure that individuals that are seeking opportunities to go to work or go to school aren't penalized by the system. We're going to be doing a number of initiatives that make the system more effective and more efficient. But most importantly, Speaker, we need to meet people's needs. That's the number one.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you for the minister, because you're definitely finding the needs for the people and the most vulnerable, and they have reached out over and over again. Speaker, this minister has been incredibly busy these past few weeks. He has introduced our community housing renewal strategy a month ago. Then last week he announced a comprehensive plan to increase market supply across Ontario so that individuals and families can find that home that fits their life and their budgets. This plan provides hope to so many new couples who are looking to buy their first home, or the families who need more than 700 square feet, and young adults who need a place to rent near work. Mr. Speaker, can the minister please highlight this plan and legislation that brings more homes and more choices to the people of Ontario?
Minister to reply.
Thanks again, Speaker. And again, I want to thank the member for Burlington for that question. Our government believes that everyone, and I mean everyone, deserves a place to call home. As the member said last Thursday, I was in Scarborough with our amazing Minister of Seniors and Accessibility to launch More Homes, More Choice, Ontario's Housing Supply Action Plan, and later that day on Thursday, I was able to present our legislation, More Homes, More Choice Act, here in the House. This plan and legislation, if passed, will put affordable home ownership in reach for many Ontario families and provide more people with the opportunity to live closer to where they work. It's a responsible plan, Speaker. It's a sustainable plan, and it will help reduce red tape and increase housing supply that is desperately needed in this province. We're moving forward, Speaker.
Response.
The bill, if passed, will help Ontarians, and I look forward to support from the other side of the House as well.
The next question, the member for Thunder Bay, Atikokan.
Speaker, my question is for the Premier. The government's decision to cut the 50 million tree program is hurting local businesses. This weekend, it was reported that Ferguson Tree Nursery in Kemptville will be destroying more than 3 million tree seedlings because of the cancellation of the program. The CEO, Ed Patchell, told the media that the trees were primarily for planters, conservation authorities, private contractors, and stewardship groups in southern Ontario. Not only will these cuts hurt Mr. Patchell's business, but they will have a negative impact on the environment. Why is the Premier hurting businesses like Mr. Patchell's?
Questions to the Premier.
The Minister of Natural Resources.
Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry.
Well, thank you, Speaker, and I thank the member for the question. It's clear that there is obviously some misinformation being bandied about there across the province, and let's be clear, we were left with a massive $15 billion deficit by the previous government, and we've made it clear that we're going to deal with that. But on the issue of Forests Ontario and the tree planting program, which they began planting trees in 2008, they have not, which they were supposed to have 50 million trees done by 2020. They have not met those goals. We indicated to them that we would be winding down the program. But every tree that is contracted to be planted this year will be planted, and we've worked with Forests Ontario to ensure that that will happen. Speaker, I think it needs to be clear that, and Mr. Patchell, I'm sure that when he examines what's really happening, will want to change his statement on that. But we are making sure that we are responsibly getting back to balance, but we're going to ensure that any contract that was in place, those trees will be planted this year.
Supplementary question.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is for the Premier. When Daniel Enright called the Premier to voice his opposition to the Premier's cuts to the 50 million tree program and the layoff of a friend who was a public servant, Daniel was shocked to hear the Premier didn't know what was going on inside his own government. The Premier told him he only learned of the cuts to the program that morning and had to call his people to find out what the program was about. Now that the Premier is aware that 50 million trees program has been cancelled, will he direct his minister to reverse this terrible decision and reinstate funding?
Good. Question's been referred to the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry.
Well, I thank you, and thank you for the supplementary, and I want to reiterate that the program is being, we've told Forests Ontario that the program would be wound down and their funding would end. Forests Ontario has also indicated clearly that they're going to go to the private sector and that they believe that they will be able to sustain this program going forward because there are people in the private sector and there are organizations who are willing to finance it. Let's be clear, the taxpayers of Ontario told us clearly last year that they wanted us to clean up the financial mess left to us by the Liberals, which was supported by the New Democrats every step of the way. We're going to do that. There will be trees planted in this province. The forest industry plants an average of 68 million trees every year, Speaker. So let's be clear. There's a lot of fear-mongering going out there, but stick to the facts. We're going to clean up the financial mess, and the trees that are contracted for this year will be planted.
Thank you. The next question, member for Ottawa South.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Premier. Morning, Premier. Speaker, it's been more than 1 year since the Premier seized the Conservative leadership. And 1 year ago, his campaign was declared debt-free to Elections Ontario. Since then, the Premier has continued to raise money through his leadership campaign, funneling more than $500,000 into the Conservative Party coffers. And Speaker, the Premier knows his debt is paid, and he is now using it so he can dodge individual annual contribution limits. And the Premier knows the intent of this law is to pay down the leadership debt
Government side,
and not to line his party's coffers. Speaker, through you to the Premier, will the Premier stop fundraising for his leadership campaign and funneling it into Conservative Party coffers, yes or no?
Clock. The government side has to come to order. Just because you're on that end of the chamber, you can't shout down the member who's got the floor. Start the clock. Questions to the Premier.
Well, through you, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to answer two questions here, one from the other member. As you can tell, 11:15 at night, I'm still returning constituent calls. Let's try to do that on the other side. It doesn't happen. The only Premier in the history of this province that actually gives out his number, that returns calls. If they like me or dislike me, at least they're going to get an answer. And as for the Liberal member, at least, Mr. Speaker, people are enthused. We were elected for change in this province. We were elected to be fiscally responsible. We were elected to knock down that $15 billion budget and balance it in a reasonable, responsible, and a thoughtful manner, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're following the rules, Mr. Speaker. Just because there's sour grapes on the other side that they can't raise a penny, and we're raising millions of dollars because people are encouraged to actually support us with by the way, Mr. Speaker, with $5 donations, $25 spaghetti dinners around the province. That's who our donors aren't. We aren't with the big super rich guys that the Liberals courted for 15 years.
Thank you. Thank you. Stop the clock. Order. 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 Start the clock. Supplementary.
Thank you, Speaker, and I hope I get an answer to the supplementary. Since January 2019, the Premier's leadership campaign has raised $221,000. 28 contributors doubled their annual contribution limit, exceeding the $1,600. And the Premier knows that no other party in this legislature, not the NDP, not the Greens, not the Liberals, has this advantage. The Premier knows the intent of the law is to pay down leadership debt and not to be used to line his party's coffers. Last week, I introduced a private member's bill to
stop the clock. The government side will come to order. Start the clock. I apologize to the member for Ottawa South.
Speaker. Last week, I introduced a private member's bill to end the Premier's dirty double dip. Speaker, through you, will the Premier do 3 things? Number 1, stop.
Okay. I'm going to ask the member for Ottawa South to be cautious with his language, and intemperate language is not helpful. Please finish your question.
Thank you, Speaker. Will the Premier do 3 things through you? Number 1, stop fundraising for his leadership campaign, return the money that exceeded annual contribution limits, and pass my private member's bill, or make that change to election law that's needed that he said he was willing to do about 2 weeks ago, but he doesn't seem to have that in his answer. Thank you, Speaker.
Premier,
Minister of Finance.
Referred to the Minister of Finance.
Well, thank you very much for the question. You know, I have to say it's rather rich from that party who held so many pay-to-play funders that the rules needed to be changed. I have to tell you, the reason they ask these kinds of questions is because they have absolutely no policy ideas, no policy concepts. So let me tell you a little bit about policy. I realized we needed to stop the $40 million a day more than you were taking in that you were spending. But let me tell you, we are bringing relief to families, $26 billion in relief. That's what you should be talking about. You should be talking about the LIFT program, low-income individual and family tax credit that's returning $2 billion to the low-income earners in Ontario. You should be talking about the CARE program, bringing relief to childcare, to 300,000 childcare programs over the course of this year. Speaker, that's why they want to talk about something idle like that, rather than the $26 billion that families are seeing back in their pockets.
Stop the clock. Restart the clock. Next question, the member for Brampton West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. This week, the Minister travelled to India to bring our Open for Business message to the world's largest democracy. The Minister was there to meet with business leaders and promote Ontario as a destination for investment and jobs. Since being elected, we have been doing everything we can to create an environment where our job creators can thrive. Because we know that when businesses thrive, people thrive. And when people thrive, communities thrive. We've been cutting red tape, lowering taxes, and fixing the Liberals' hydro mess. These measures are giving businesses the confidence that they need to once again invest in Ontario. Could the Minister outline for the House the importance of bringing our Open for Business message to international investors?
Great question.
Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade.
Thanks very much to the member from Brampton West for the great question and the great work that he's doing for his community. Let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, It was my first trip to India. India is buzzing with excitement, Mr. Speaker. It's an unbelievable country. Not only is it the world's largest democracy, and they are in the middle of their national elections right now, 900 million people are expected to vote with the results coming later this month, but it's one of the fastest growing economies as well, 7 to 8% year over year. There are many, many companies, about 60 of them in all, Mr. Speaker, from India that are currently operating here in Ontario, and many more that are looking at opening up in North America, and we think that Ontario is the best entry point for those companies who want to embark in the North American market. That's why we went there, to meet directly with businesses, Mr. Speaker, and tell them what we're doing here in Ontario. We've been creating jobs already, Mr. Speaker, 123,000 of them in the last several months, and we know, and now they know, that Ontario is the best place to invest.
Thank you. Supplementary question.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for his response. After 15 years of Liberal government, businesses are finally looking to invest in Ontario again. They have confidence in their government because businesses know that we understand the challenges they face, and we understand that pro-business policies are pro-people policies. We are providing $3.8 billion of corporate income tax relief through the Ontario Job Creation Investment Incentive. The incentive will encourage businesses to invest in their facilities and create tens of thousands of jobs. We're cutting red tape by 25%, saving businesses $400 million a year in compliance costs. We're making Ontario open for business and open for jobs. Could the Minister tell the House the response that he received from businesses in India?
Great supplementary.
Minister of Economic Development.
Thanks again to the member from Brampton for the question. You wouldn't believe the response, actually, Mr. Speaker. These businesses are excited to invest here in Ontario. They know this is the great place to be in North America. I met with too many businesses to name, probably about 50 of them in all, Mr. Speaker, during the trip. I met with Haig Energy and Sabrin Bioentry and Advanced Enzymes to promote Ontario's agri-food sector. I also sat down with Mahindra and Tata, Mahindra Aerospace, Mahindra Tractors, Aditya Birla Carbon. They're all part of the booming India automotive sector. I also met with Larsen and Toubro, which is part of the construction companies there that are looking to do infrastructure projects. I spoke with Paytm, Mr. Speaker. They're an Indian tech company, and their North American head office is here in Toronto right now, and I'm proud to tell you that they're looking at creating over 100 more jobs here in Ontario over the next year. Paytm is excited about the work that our government is doing. I wish the NDP was excited, as the folks in India seem that Ontario is looking for.
Thank you. The member for University Rosedale.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Deputy Premier. Last week, the Conservative government took another step forward in the Premier's scheme to take over the TTC. The legislation hands over total control of all new transit projects to the province without any input or say from the people of Toronto or any compensation for the people who built and paid for the TT system for generations. That means the Premier can choose what gets built, when and how, allowing him to cater to his developer friends but not transit riders or the people of Toronto. Speaker, how can the Premier justify snatching Toronto's transit system away from the people who use and invest in the TTC every day?
The questions to the Deputy Premier.
To the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Referred to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Thank you, Speaker, and I want to thank the member for the question. On behalf of Minister Yurek, who tabled the Getting Ontario Moving Act last Thursday, I'm pleased to be able to answer the question. Our government for the people, the reason we introduced this legislation, Speaker, there is a number of proposed measures. This is a very, very important bill for our government to move forward. The people of Ontario, they've waited long enough for transit improvements and investments. So by amending the Metrolinx Act to upload responsibility of new subway projects from the City of Toronto to the province would mean that new subways are built faster and on time for the people of Ontario. There are a number of other components of this Act, Speaker, things that deal with the school bus safety. There are a number of measures, but the item that the member asked, I think, again, most Ontarians are concerned
Response.
that just subways aren't being built faster. This uploading is desperately required, and if the bill, if passed, would provide that necessary relief. I'd be more than happy to answer further questions in the supplemental.
Supplementary question.
Back to the Deputy Premier. In the back of the napkin scheme, the Premier says he can build new subways faster by opening up the process to the private sector. Okay, we've heard this claim before. Let's look at the Union Pearson Express. Let's look at Presto. Let's look at the Eglinton Crosstown, which is we've had years of delays, and it's gone millions of dollars over budget. In fact, the private consortium building the Eglinton Crosstown extracted an extra $237 million from taxpayers to stick to its original contract. That is the largest payout on a public-private partnership in Ontario's history. Will the Premier admit that he is wrong and stop the hostile takeover of the TTC?
Members, please take their seats. Questions to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
To the Minister of Infrastructure.
Or to the Minister of Infrastructure.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And let's face it, Mr. Speaker, if the NDP were in power today, there would hardly be any transit built in the province of Ontario. Mr. Speaker, we have a great track record in the province of Ontario when it comes to public-private partnerships. In fact, Mr. Speaker, we've delivered to Infrastructure Ontario 109 private-public partnerships in the province of Ontario since 2005. Mr. Speaker, 95% of all of those projects, 95% of 109 projects were delivered on budget. Mr. Speaker, we take pride in the partnerships of the private sector on this part. And, Mr. Speaker, I was pleased to join the Minister of Transportation, our Premier, a number of our MPPs to announce a historic investment into subway expansion in Toronto, totaling $28.5 billion. I will put our Premier's track record, our government's track record against the NDP.
Thank you. Next question, the member for York Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Speaker, the Local Planning and Appeals Tribunal was broken from the beginning. Toronto Regional Board of Trade estimates that approximately 100,000 housing units are caught up in cases at the LPAT. Speaker, many units could be built, but with so many caught up at the tribunal, what help are they to the people of Ontario who are seeing skyrocketing prices for homes and rentals? This kind of red tape is increasing delays in unlocking potential housing, harming both people and communities. Can the minister please share with the House how his proposed changes will speed up the LPAT so that more houses and rentals can get on the market faster?
Questions to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Speaker, through you, I want to thank the honourable member for that excellent question. As I think most members in this House know, Ontario, we're in a housing crisis. We all know that that was caused in part by years of mismanagement by the previous government. They just didn't get that file right. There's not enough homes for families and individuals. We need to have some big changes in terms of housing supply. So I appreciate the question regarding the LPAT. Currently at the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, there is a tremendous backlog of legacy Ontario Municipal Board cases. The backlog has slowed down the approval process. It is at a crisis point itself. I want to thank the Attorney General for all the support. We're currently adding 11 new adjudicators to the LPAT, which is a 40% increase. That we're going to work significantly on that backlog. There are a number of other proposed changes that I think take the best of the OMB and the LPAT system, and really will be able to move forward to create and unlock this 100,000 units.
Thank you. Supplementary question.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Minister, for that answer. Housing is not going to build itself, and we need real solutions to solve housing shortage in our province. Mr. Speaker, there's some concern among my constituents that the changes announced will return the LPAT to an OMB-style decision-making body. There are also some concerns that the proposed changes to the LPAT fees are going to add more expense for individuals and community groups, thereby making the process less accessible. Could the minister please clarify the impact of these proposed changes and how the updated LPAT process will be different from the old OMB process?
Minister to reply.
Speaker, and again, I want to thank the member from York Centre for that question. He really gets it. Speaker, from our consultations through the Housing Supply Action Plan, of the over 2,000 submissions we received, over 85% were from the general public, and essentially the current process, as the member notes, just wasn't working. We're proposing changes to the LPAT that would make sure that they have all the necessary information to make a decision. We want to ensure that they have the powers and the resources that are available to make those timely decisions. I talked in my first answer about the significant increase in adjudicators, but we also want to allow the tribunal to make those best planning decisions, not just in the place of council, but we also want to be able to charge different fees and move towards a cost recovery model while still allowing community groups and residents to maintain affordable access to the appeals process. I think, again, Speaker, we're taking the best of the OMB and the LPAT to move forward. I'm convinced that these adjudicators will create a change in the backlog. Many other
Thank you very much. The next question, the member for Toronto Centre.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. Last Thursday, the government tabled a bill that reads like it was written by the Premier's developer friends and campaign donors. It's not a housing bill. It is a bill of rights for developers seeking to pave over prime farmland and wetlands with impunity. Bill 108 guts the inclusionary zoning laws that affordable housing advocates fought so hard for, while doing nothing to stop unethical landlords from gouging their tenants or illegally evicting them so that they can raise the rent. Why is the Premier putting the interests of developers above the right of all Ontarians to have a safe and affordable home?
I look to the acting Premier.
Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Referred to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Thanks, Speaker. And I can't express, Speaker, through you, how disappointed I am in that premise of that question and what we're trying to accomplish. Our government believes that everyone deserves a place to call home. And you know who are my friends, Speaker? My friends are that couple in their 20s or 30s that right now don't have that dream of home ownership within their grasp. You know who are my friends, Speaker? It's that couple with a couple of kids in a 700-square-foot apartment with a small storage locker that don't see an opportunity for them to get the home that they need. You know who are my friends, Speaker? They're the hundreds of thousands of people that over this announcement and over our consultation that have come forward to unanimously say that we need to intensify around transit. That's where people want to live, Speaker. It's the senior that wants to downsize that doesn't seem to have that option. It's the person who wants to create a second unit in the house. Those are my friends, Speaker. Those are the people that speak to this bill. Those are the people that we want to provide a safe and stable.
Thank you. Stop the clock. Restart the clock. Supplementary.
Thank you, Speaker. Bill 108 not only eviscerates Ontario's inclusionary zoning laws, but it puts a cap on funding for growth-related services like libraries and community centres and daycares. It stops cities from ensuring that new developments include parks and public spaces. It encourages more sprawl while shortchanging residents seeking a new home in densifying urban communities like downtown Toronto. And it stops environmental or human rights groups from appealing a decision that harms our natural heritage or that blocks new housing choices for low-income people. Why won't the Premier fund affordable housing instead of giving away the province to developers?
Minister.
Yeah, again, Speaker, I really hope this member takes advantage of the briefing we've offered her today, because she can't be more away from the truth. You know, in terms of the Community Benefits Authority that we talked,
I'm going to have to ask the member to withdraw.
Withdraw. Again, Speaker, she needs to understand the announcement that we made on Thursday was our intention to consult You know, I had to make the same correction with Councillor Matlow. I had to make the same correction. You know, rather than grandstanding, why doesn't the member just acknowledge, like groups like the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, that our Community Benefits Authority consultation recognizes that growth pays for growth, but at the same time, people who want to build homes need that certainty. So, you know, again, the intention to consult was there. If the member, again, if she reads the legislation properly, realizes that inclusionary zoning, we feel, is best towards transit. That's where everyone...
Thank you. Thank you. The next question, the member for Barrie Innisfil.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Education. Last week, I was disappointed. Mr. Speaker, I was disappointed to see that the City of Toronto was once again spreading misinformation when it comes to the support our government is giving for childcare. I know that our government has always been clear that we need to make we need to take clear action to protect what matters most, Mr. Speaker, while providing relief to families and individuals today. Can the minister please tell the House more about the supports we're providing for the city to ensure that parents are getting the most out of their childcare?
The question is for the Minister of Education.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I'd like to thank the member from Barrie Innisfil for the great question. You're doing a wonderful job in your riding, and it shows every day. And I wish the City of Toronto was doing as equally a good job, because quite frankly, even their own Auditor General has been waving the warning flags. And you know, we're going to be watching, this year alone, we're going to be giving the City of Toronto $433 million for childcare services alone. And we're challenging them. We're challenging them to spend it wisely and invest where it needs to be done. It's unacceptable that 16% childcare spaces were left vacant last year. Families in Toronto need their City Council to be working with them, because guess what? We think they can reduce the cost of delivering childcare in the City of Toronto by 5%. There's opportunities to find efficiencies, and we want to work with the City of Toronto to make sure that happens, because, again, Speaker, our focus is on the parents. We're putting them first, not government. Parents should be deciding their...
Thank you. Thank you. Supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for her detailed response. It is great to have someone provide accurate information rather than misinformation that's being spread by the City. Mr. Speaker, under the previous government, parents were often forgotten, suffering under the weight of increased taxes and increased expenses with no relief in sight. Thankfully, our government is reversing this trend and bringing relief back to the people of Ontario. With the budget, I was excited that our government is proposing thoughtful solutions that respect parents and provide them with the support that they need. Could the minister please explain more about how the government is supporting parents with a child care policy that works?
Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And of course, I'm pleased to stand in this House anytime to talk about what we're bringing forward, because it's demonstrating not only has our government listened, but we're caring as well. Because it was my pleasure to be with the Minister of Finance just a few weeks ago in the amazing riding of Pickering that is represented by the President of the Treasury Board, because we've invested $2 billion to support childcare initiatives across this province, and that's this year alone. Because, you know, the fact of the matter is, we need to make sure that parents have choice. Accessibility, affordability, and also flexibility given their schedules. We're creating 30,000 new spaces. 10,000 alone will be situated in schools. And this is going to help. Our plan is going to help 300,000 families. And let me tell you, our care program, our tax credit, will cover up to 75% of their expenses that will go to in-centre, home, or camps. Again, we're putting parents in the centre of the decision-making.
Thank you. The next question, the member for Windsor West.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. In November, the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services announced potentially devastating changes to the Ontario Disability Support Program. Despite the fact that ODSP rates are already force people with disabilities to live in poverty, the minister slashed a planned increase by 50% and increased the clawback on earned income to 75%. Most disturbingly, the minister announced future changes to the definition of disability, which is used to determine ODSP eligibility. Experts, advocates and recipients are rightly concerned that this Conservative government is moving towards a more narrow definition that would exclude thousands of people. Will the Premier confirm whether the government will be adopting a more restrictive definition like the federal CPPD definition? Yes or no?
Questions to the Premier.
Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Referred to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Thanks, Speaker. I want to thank the honourable member for that question. Our government for the people is moving forward with social assistance reforms that will restore dignity, encourage employment, and empower the province's most vulnerable to break free from the poverty cycle. And I think Minister MacLeod has spoken many times in this House when she pledges that she believes the best social program is for our government to be able to provide jobs and job opportunities for those most vulnerable. Our plan is effective, it's sustainable, and I think on behalf of Minister MacLeod, the most important thing that we can do is to provide that hope and opportunity for people and to provide that outcome that I think she most desperately wants. As a first step, our government worked very closely with the municipal sector on the transformation of our system. We continue to work with our stakeholders, and we appreciate some of the suggestions that they have. I look forward to more from the member.
Thank you. Supplementary question.
Thank you. Back to the Premier. Ontarians with disabilities and their families are extremely anxious about what changes to ODSP eligibility might mean. Those with episodic disabilities like multiple sclerosis, cancer, or mental health concerns will almost certainly be excluded from accessing vital income support if Ontario moves to a definition of disability like the CPPD. Cuts to ODSP are just one of the many ways that this Conservative government is hurting people with disabilities and their families. Not only are ODSP recipients living in poverty, they're also waiting decades for supportive housing. They're languishing on waitlists for support through the Passport program. This government is wreaking havoc on people's lives with their careless and dangerous decisions. Will the Premier be moving toward a more exclusionary definition of disability so fewer people can qualify? Yes or no?
Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Well, again, to the member opposite, she mentioned a number of things. I want to take the opportunity, given her reference to supportive housing and mental health, that this week is Mental Health Week in Ontario and also Children's Mental Health. We were at an announcement this morning with a number of ministers, with Minister Elliott, and I especially, because of my portfolio in housing, very much want to say to the member that supportive housing is a very important aspect of the supports that not just my ministry but many other ministries provide. The best social safety net, I think, is a compassionate society. And I know that when it comes to supporting people with disabilities with dignity, the system redesign wants to hear from those that are providing services. We want to use a whole-of-government approach among a number of ministries. So, I appreciate what the member has to say. I know that the minister is right on top of this file.
Response.
She is working collaboratively with many of our ministerial colleagues, and I know she'll have more to say in future speeches.
Thank you. That concludes our question period for this morning. Pursuant to Standing Order 38A, the member for Ottawa South has given notice of his dissatisfaction with the answer to his question given by the Premier concerning Ontario's election finance law. This matter will be debated Wednesday at 6 p.m. This House stands in recess until 1 p.m.